Hold up, let me find a little music, man. What we want to start with today? Something cool, something low key. Mic check, mic check. Hold on, hold on.
Yeah, sick.
Grand rising, everybody. Hopefully, everybody had an amazing weekend. All right, so yeah, as you can hear, the mic is working. The mic is working. We got a great show for y'all today. We got the same questions that y'all probably got with this Charlie Kirk situation. It's been bringing about a lot of questions, and little answers, or not as many answers that we are believing in, I should say. So we're going to talk a little bit about, we got a couple videos from last show that we were going to show that we didn't make it to with Tucker Carlson. We got a lot on the feedback. Let me turn this. My apologies. Let me turn that off. But we got a lot on the feedback of after Charlie Kirk. And then we have, I hate distractions in the background at times. We got some Ben Shapiro videos. We got Tim Dillon, and we got Bibi Netanyahu getting asked some tough questions that Bibi looking a little awkward in some of these questions he's being asked in regards to Charlie Kirk, in regards to his impact on American government. There's just a lot of stuff being thrown out there, and we're going to talk about it all. And apparently, that's right. They're looking for replacements when it comes to who's going to lead a lot of this young crowd that Charlie Kirk was responsible for leading. And Rabbi Shmuley, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Rabbi Shmuley has raised his hand. Let me actually see if I can get these windows. Hold on. Let's see if I can get these doors closed in the background. If it gets too loud, just let me know. But hopefully everybody had a great weekend. As you are joining, I see Unc already let y'all know, but make sure that y'all like, and subscribe. We got a good show for y'all today. All right, so we're going to get into, let me check out some of these comments first and foremost. We got my boy Critical Thinking in the building. We got a few critical thinkers in the building. It's always great when you got a bunch of critical thinkers on your team. We got Big Bro Steve in the building. Morning. I'm just going to read a few. At me Dakota, yo, what's up? Beck Neal, hopefully I'm pronouncing that, was good. Good morning. I love the smell of truth in the morning. Oh, we're going to get to it. You know what's funny? You know what's funny when you say I love the smell of truth in the morning? Sometimes I'm not gonna say sometimes I always, weird beginning to a sentence, but sometimes I not question as if to stop, but I question like, all right, bro, why are you even talking about this stuff? Like, why does it matter? And I think it's good for me that I question those things, because it's always centered around like, yo, are you just gossiping? Are you talking about something that doesn't even matter? Is this meaningful? And it always comes back to me for, like spreading the truth is important. Like just being able to talk about the truth is very important, because it sets the foundation for everything. When we know the truth, we hopefully will not be misled. We won't get manipulated and bamboozled into hating each other, perhaps the position that we're in right now. But a lot of these truths, they set precedent on how we move throughout our day-to-days, as you know, how we set the standards for our politicians and leaders, and ultimately how we interact with humanity. So truth is definitely something that we're always going to focus on here. Too early to tell if we're being lied to. That's the thing, yo. It's too early, and we're just going to keep asking questions. But something that I will pay attention to, and I got shout out my bro Ski, he brought this over. But one thing that we will keep paying attention to is how people are answering these questions, because there's a lot of awkwardness, and I'm glad that a lot of stuff is being exposed, because I really do fear that our government is being controlled by people who do not have the American citizens in their best interest. I really do fear that. Critical Thinking wrote, do I think Israel killed him? No. I don't think we can unlike Bibi Netanyahu, I believe he came out and was blaming. Let me not say that, but I believe that some people, because I don't have it pulled up, but I believe that y'all tell me, was Bibi, because in one of these videos they said that Bibi Netanyahu came out and was blaming like Islamic radical groups for this. And then you hear, matter of fact, Ben Shapiro, I think we're going to look at that clip where Ben Shapiro was going back and forth with Bill Maher, and he like blames one group. He's like, yeah, well, we know it's a leftist group, but then there's an interesting combo after that where it's like 2 seconds ago you just said you know who did it, but now you're saying, well, we don't know who. A lot of people are speculating, placing blame, or trying to remove society's blame that may be thrusted on them, right? Like certain people that may start to feel like suspects. A lot, that guilty conscience says a lot. That guilty conscience says a lot. It still doesn't feel real. It doesn't. It doesn't feel real. And I think for me, the most disheartening feeling about it is just the reactions to it. And, you know, people can feel however they want to feel about situations like this. You don't have to be empathetic. You don't have to be sympathetic. You don't. But what it does is it shows me just how divided we are and how much hatred and frustration is built inside of people. And this may be one of those interesting times in society where you have every single group. It seems like every single group feels like they're the victim and genuinely believes like they are the victim. You got the Democrats, they feel like they're the victims. I mean, that's pretty much been their spiel the entire time, appealing to victimhood and appealing to these marginalized groups and how they're the saviors. So that has always been their spiel. But then now, obviously, you got a lot of on the conservative side where the conservatives are feeling like victims. You hear Nick Fuentes talk all the time about disaffected young men. There's a lot of victimhood happening right now, and it seems like it's at its peak, you know, and both groups have reached that point together. And what ends up happening is now politicians and people in leadership, they can appeal to that victimhood. They can appeal to the emotions that are created by you embracing being a victim and something happening to you. Because when something happens to us, we want somebody to comfort us, right? So that's what ends up happening. So let's keep going. We got Unc in the building, of course. Grand Rising to all friends and family. Good morning to all brothers and sisters throughout the world. As you can see, Unc dropping all the flags. We are all connected, right? All connected in this thing. And the faster we realize that we're all connected in this thing, we'll realize that how we've been moving in society does not make any sense. We've been disrespectful to God, disrespectful to overall humanity. It's a shame. And Unc, I want us to keep this same energy as far as seeing each other as God's children when we're going through a lot of these interviews that we're going to review today. Because a lot of these, and to be clear, some of these interviews, they're going to call out and put some blame and have some people looking like very bad in this type of situation. But it's important for us to cover this stuff, in my opinion. All right, Cameron F about to start working. Let's get it. All right, maybe just a couple more. Grim Reaper tapping in from Canada, eh? As a former Canada resident, you know, got to say what's up to my Canadian brethren. All right, let's get into it. Got Skeeg in the building. So shout out to my brother Mersh. Mersh got me these. He's like, yo, these will be dope for putting on the table. And I wasn't sure if I was supposed to open it. I opened the other one and I was like, yo, is this like a collector's item? And am I supposed to just cut it open? So I'll wait until I see you, until you pull up. Because that's you know, Skeeg, that's also the roomie. So yeah. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right. What do we start off with first? You know what? We may just dive right into it. All right. So matter of fact, let me start off with this real quick. I want y'all to see this exchange between Tucker Carlson and Mark Cuban, because I think that'll set the theme and the tone for everything else. So we'll start off with that, and then we'll get into everything else. Make sure that y'all are liking, and subscribing. If you can, send to a friend. Click that share button, send to a friend. The more, the merrier. We want as many different perspectives engaged in these conversations as possible, because that's the only way we're ever going to learn, all right? Coming together. All right, so let's get to work.
whether we should be sending money to Ukraine or not. Were you in favor of that? What's your take on whether we should be sending money to Ukraine or not? Were you in favor of that?
Man, they need it.
I mean, honestly, I don't
it.
have a good answer. I can make an argument both ways, and half my family is Ukrainian from my grandparents. And so, personally, I think we should help, but I don't have a studied answer for you.
How much money have you sent to Ukraine?
None.
Oh, so what do you mean by we? You're the one whose family's from Ukraine. Like, why don't you send them $1 billion?
Because I'm trying to fix healthcare.
Why don't you fix their healthcare if you're like so deep? If you think we need to help, why don't you start? How about you first? Yeah. I notice that's never like even an option for anybody. It's like, we need to help. That's not what charity is. Forcing other people to help is not charity.
Here's the good
vanity.
News. The good news is all the weapons were on loan lease. We're getting it back. And our dear President Trump has negotiated that we own half the minerals. So he turned this horrible tragedy of a war into a profit center, which is one of his unique gifts. I think we can all agree.
Right.
Can I?
I didn't like that response from Mark Cuban. I didn't like this snarky response from this dude. I don't know if it's really snarky. Maybe he was just trying to save Mark Cuban. But when you just have so many deaths involved, it's kind of like now Trump's going to turn it around into Trump Gaza. And it just seems to come across as a bit insensitive to me, but it is what it is. But this is the theme. What I really want to focus on is Mark Cuban. He's sitting here as a billionaire, a Ukrainian billionaire. And here he's asked a question, if we should be providing aid to Ukraine, and Tucker Carlson puts him on complete blast and says, how much money have you sent to Ukraine? He says none. Why? Because I'm trying to fix healthcare. This is that elitist mindset. Instead of him just sitting back and putting the ego to the side, he just responded with what came to mind first, right? Because he was in defense mode. Oh, because I'm trying to fix healthcare. Oh, so y'all little people who aren't qualified to probably give the type of aid that I'm qualified to because I'm a billionaire, y'all give some aid. Matter of fact, take it out of people's taxes. Take it out of people's taxes because I'm busy doing something better than this. I'm busy doing something greater. And this is the same. This is how we get finessed by a lot of these elites, these people in power. It's a reoccurring theme where they constantly tell us to do certain things that they are not willing to do themselves. The same thing that Nick Fuentes was calling out when it came to Matt Walsh, with Matt Walsh talking about after the guy killed the lady on the train, we want people's heads on spikes. And Nick Fuentes was coming at him saying a bunch of stuff, but pretty much applying pressure, saying, stop trying to rile other people up, to crash out, to commit violence, to get up here and start taking arms when you're not willing to do any of those things yourself. A lot of these people that we hear from, these influencers, it really goes back to me to that opening scene in Achilles that we've shown before. We talk about it all the time with Achilles getting that Agamemnon. It's saying like it'll be the day when the kings fight their own battles. Go fight your own battles. Go fight your own battles. Isn't that what we valued when it came to Gladiator? When he was commanding his troops, when he was front line with his troops? Nowadays, people just sit up in offices. They play with our lives like pawns. The people that die from these wars, like instead of saying providing funding, maybe saying just stop the war, well, side issue. But these people just sit up in these offices. They don't lose any lives. They don't have any skin in the game. Their families aren't dying, but they can just control these wars as if they're just business transactions. And ultimately, that's what it is, if you ask me. But I just thought that video highlighted a lot of the mindset around a lot of these people that give us advice, telling us to do certain things that they haven't even done themselves. You're busy trying to save healthcare, so you can't give any money to Ukraine. How about the common person who's busy just trying to pay bills and put food on the table? So they should take money out of their paycheck, out of their taxes, and they should send money to Ukraine. But you as the billionaire, because you're trying to save healthcare, you shouldn't. Very bad look on Mark Cuban's part, but I'm not surprised. All right, let's move on. Let's move on. So one of the things that I was talking to y'all about is the reactions that we've been seeing. The reactions that we've been seeing to Charlie Kirk's passing. I want to highlight this one before we get into the videos. You guys give me your thoughts, but this is a pastor. Yes, I said pastor. This is a pastor. You guys tell me what you think about his reaction to Charlie Kirk's passing. And like I said, this highlights, in my opinion, something that's a bigger problem. And shout out to my bro, Ant. I just saw Ant tap in. And Antonice in the building. Shout out to y'all. All right, y'all tell me what y'all think about this. And if this is, forget right or wrong. I was getting ready to ask if this is a proper response. Forget whether it's proper, forget whether it's right and wrong. When you're watching this, just tell me what this symbolizes or makes you feel about humanity.
Charlie Kirk did not deserve to be assassinated. But I'm overwhelmed seeing the flags of the United States of America at half staff, calling this nation to honor and venerate a man who was an unapologetic racist and spent all of his life sowing seeds of division and hate into this land. And hearing people with selective rage who are mad about Charlie Kirk but didn't give a damn about Melissa Hortman and her husband when they were shot down in their home, tell me I ought to have compassion for the death of a man who had no respect for my own life. I am sorry, but there's nowhere in Bible where we are taught to honor evil. And how you die does not redeem how you lived. You do not become a hero in your death when you are a weapon of the enemy in your life. I can abhor the violence that took your life, but I don't have to celebrate how you chose to live. I am overwhelmed.
We're living in some dangerous times. We're living in some dangerous times, and I'm going to point out exactly why it's dangerous times. Preachers and pastors are very much like these rap artists. You know how young people and old people are influenced by a lot of the rappers? There's a lot of people that are influenced by pastors the same way. Now, you would think that that would be a positive. But the direction of where a lot of these, not obviously all, right? Do I have to say that? Y'all know I'm not talking about all pastors. The direction that a lot of these people in power, whether it's pastors or anybody else, are taking this Charlie Kirk situation and trying to, I don't know what it is, like get out their own frustrations. You would almost think that you wouldn't even talk about it if you're going to get up on as a pastor and speak about it like this. This is why it's so dangerous. Oh my God, Vons, you're setting me up here. Vons wrote Preach. This is why it's so dangerous. Vons wrote Preach, celebrating what that pastor just said. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of us, especially the ones that have tuned into the show for a very long time, that are cringing right now. Other people who don't know Vons or haven't seen, they're like, oh, he's probably just, you have your thoughts on it. To get up there and celebrate something like that, it tells me a lot of things. It tells me that Black people in the church have embraced this mindset of victimhood, at least that church. And there's a whole lot of Black people that I believe that have those same thoughts, because I've spoken to them over the last few days. And I'm not going to say, matter of fact, let me be very clear. Out of the people that I've spoken to, I wouldn't say that more are on along the lines of this mindset. I don't say that more of them, the people that I've spoken to. But when I go on Instagram, when I go on social media, the responses, I would say, are more aligned with what this pastor said. And it's because, in my opinion, the Democrats and liberals have done a very good job. I just got to call a spade a spade. I'm not blaming anything. And let me rephrase that. It's because Black people have allowed, because the emphasis and accountability is always on the people that get finessed, not on the person doing the finessing, in my opinion. At least in this situation. It's been going on for so long. We should be able to, fool me once, right? Okay. Black people, we've allowed ourselves to get finessed into feeling like we're victims and that white people do so much to us and that everything is to blame. I've heard so many people have these same sentiments when it came to Charlie Kirk. They'll say certain things that he said and completely take it out of context. Whether it's him saying, yeah, they said that human sacrifices were necessary for guns. It's like, did you read the entire context? Do you even understand the reason why he was saying that you have to, or that arms are necessary? It's like anything else. There's going to be pros and cons. If you're with guns, and one of the reasons why you like guns is to protect your other rights, then obviously with guns, there's going to be certain things that come into play on the con side. You're going to have, it's like, should people not be allowed to drive because there's car accidents? You kind of get what I'm saying? So people are completely deciding to misinterpret the things that he's saying. And I did not agree with Charlie Kirk. I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan, to be totally honest. I wasn't a Charlie Kirk fan. I thought that Charlie Kirk was one of these panderers of Israel. And now that we're starting to see it come out, it seems like he was moving away from that. But I thought Charlie Kirk was completely disingenuous when it comes to him supporting Israel. And I believe that Charlie Kirk woke up and was realizing that. And based on what a lot of things that are coming out, his interview with Megyn Kelly and a lot of his friends that he was close to expressing how he was changing his stance and declining a lot of money that Netanyahu and Israel wanted to put into his organization, like a lot of Zionists, I believe, have been putting into his organization prior. I think that when you no longer want to accept money from a group of people, I believe that even you realize that you were probably on the wrong side of this thing, and that you were encouraging a lot of young people to support a group that I would deem as what Israel is doing as terror. So therefore, they're a terrorist organization in my mind, what they're doing to Palestine. It just is what it is. But let me get back to why this man is so dangerous. When people hear what that man just said and are clapping for him, and when you have a lot of older people, and Vons, I'm not even going to show your other comment just because I don't want it to lead to anything, or I just don't. I think you should be. I think you should have been a little bit more careful in the comment that you wrote after that. But that just goes to show people look at what that pastor just said and have no problem with what he said. This is the most ungodly thing, in my opinion, that a pastor could be preaching. Dr. King, professor. I think this is a professor. I don't know. I think this professor, aka this pastor, has no idea what he's talking about. I can tell he's never seen an entire Charlie Kirk dialogue. I would agree. I would agree. And this is the same way that they allow Nick Fuentes to be painted on the picture painted in. Could you imagine? And this is, a lot of people may say, why are you being sympathetic or empathetic? No. Could you imagine if somebody took a clip of the things that I say on this show, but just took a little clip of it and sent that to other people or posted it somewhere, like how that would sound if you just took the clip instead of listening to the entire context? A lot of people don't want to, like, too lazy to actually look up the entire video. Y'all so lazy, y'all don't even look up the entire context of your own Bible. A lot of y'all. The people that follow that pastor, people clapping for that message, the same way that you won't look at the context of what Charlie Kirk says, that's exactly why you don't know what's in your Bible. That's why when I ask you questions about your Bible, you're confused. Wait, what? That's in the Bible? Because you follow people, not principles. You follow pastors, not the principles of Christianity. And that's where we get in trouble. That's why when you have a church full of people clapping for what he just said, because they are fans of the pastor, not of the principles of the Bible, just in my opinion. See, the commandments are clear with this stuff, I thought. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill, right? So think about any apology when we talk about how to apologize. When you apologize to somebody and you say, yo, my bad, but it just removes like the entire apology. That's what he went up there and said, in my opinion. But this is just, I only wanted to play that to show how misled we are as a society and how much victimhood and hatred and division these elites have caused. Shout out to the people that are fanatical Democrats and Republicans. You are a large reason why this situation is what it is and where the country is and why the country is where it is. All of this division, they've successfully divided and conquered us to the point where, and this is, I hate to just pick on Vons. I hate to pick on Vons, but Vons was clapping for this message. But see, I also pay attention. I saw Vons under, I think it was Tyrese's post, because you know how you see, y'all think I'm probably like a detective. No, I saw what you wrote under Tyrese's post, Vons, that you had no idea who Charlie Kirk was and that you just learned about him that day. I would ask you, did you do research on Charlie Kirk? Did you look at the full speeches? Or are you just allowing yourself to be manipulated by people that sound good to people that lack information? I can tell you exactly the things that I disagreed and agreed with when it comes to Charlie Kirk from a political standpoint. Most people that I hear him reacting to are reacting to snippets, small clips, that if you looked at the entire, well, I don't even know if you looked at the entire clip, you would change your mind. But we need to address this it's justified evil. And this is going to be a theme that comes up when we hear Ben Shapiro later on in this interview with Charlie Kirk, when he's celebrating Hamas leaders dying. Now, a lot of people in this group chat or that are looking at it right now may say, yeah, I celebrate Hamas dying. What you're doing is you're playing God. You're playing God. You're saying I'm responsible enough to determine which group is terrorist and which group is not, and which group therefore deserves to die and which group deserves to live. Which group's lives are more important than each other. That's what it ultimately, that's what it leads to. That's what it leads to. So perhaps we should think about how we're responding to a lot of these situations. And when Vaughn says he disagreed with everything, you notice reoccurring themes. Like whenever you ask somebody, well, what did you disagree with? Oh, I disagree with everything. Okay. This is when we know that we lack leadership. I disagree with everything. You disagree with everything that man said. All right. You're a Christian, Vons. You're a hardcore Christian. But I guess you don't disagree with the abortion stance as far as people pick and choose how they want to interpret religion. People pick and choose how they want to interpret the Bible. People pick and choose whose lives value more compared to this group or that group. And us hating each other, we're in a bad place. We're in a very bad place, but let's keep it moving. I want to move on to this Tim Dillon interview. We'll watch the Tim Dillon interview, then we'll watch probably the Charlie Kirk with Ben Shapiro. But I want us to take a look at, matter of fact, no, we're going to switch it up real quick. I'd actually rather, I want to look at, this is a video that we posted. Since we're talking about this stuff, I'd rather, let me switch gears a little bit. Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk. I want to watch this interview first, if that's okay with y'all. Give me a second. I just got to find it. Hold on. All right. Is it on the screen for y'all? All right, let me do full screen. So this interview was done a day before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. A day before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I don't want you to pay attention to Charlie Kirk. Listen to the questions, but I want you to pay very close attention to how Ben Shapiro answers these questions. And you tell me if this is not pure evil. Pure evil. You tell me.
Let your patriotic value on team. So we should hear. So we're on Team Civilization here. We want to see the maniacs of Hamas be defeated. So we've seen news this morning that, quite honestly, I'm a little confused by, and I was hoping you could navigate it and help us understand, which is that Israel bombed Qatar, which houses a lot of Hamas officials. What happened here? And if I were to introduce just the skeptical question, will this potentially endanger America's own interests in the Middle East? So please, Ben, help me better understand the situation.
Sure. So I think that the lead up to understand here is that Qatar sort of plays both sides when it comes to its negotiating stance between Hamas and Israel and the United States. So it has provided extraordinary material support to Hamas directly, billions of dollars in material support to Hamas. The leadership of Hamas have been living in Qatar for years at five-star hotels. Hamas's priorities have been pressed by Qatar in negotiations multiple times. Qatar has not put significant pressure on Hamas in the past to release the hostages or to end the war. And so basically, as Israel nears the end of the war, which is what this last movement in Gaza City is supposed to be, that there's a final offer that was put on the table actually by the Trump administration that essentially said that Hamas should release the remaining 48 hostages, meaning 28 dead bodies and 20 alive hostages. And the United States would then guarantee, through its own honest brokerage, some sort of end to the war that would result in the disarming of Hamas and the movement of the Gaza Strip to presumably some sort of coalitional government supported by regional states and the rebuilding of the area. And Qatar was pushing Hamas, apparently, we heard. And Hamas this morning in Arabic actually rejected it. That's not been widely reported by the media, but it's true. Hamas actually rejected the American offer. The president had put out via Truth Social a statement saying, this is your last chance. And if you don't do that, bad things are going to happen. The idea that Israel would be able to fly 10 F-16s all the way across the Middle East to Qatar to strike a very specific terror target in Doha without American knowledge beggars the imagination. It is extraordinarily unlikely, to say the very least. Honestly, it would not be wildly improbable if Qatar knew that was coming.
So a lot of y'all may hear that and say, all right, well, he's just saying that America probably knew. I actually think that America probably did know. However, Trump came out and said the opposite. Trump said that he was very, and it's the tone of what he came out and said it. Like Trump, when it comes to Israel, I'm telling y'all, I don't know what it is, but they are like, I feel like Netanyahu is just walking Trump on a leash. I feel like Netanyahu is walking Trump on a leash. He is scared to respond. He's picking his words very well. Like he's choosing very carefully the things that he says in response. And then you got Ben Shapiro jumping up here, completely contradicting what Donald Trump said. Like the arrogance and the power, because it's arrogance on the end where it's like, okay, you're relying on Trump. You're relying on Trump for help. You're one of the people that has Trump's ear. I don't know why, but it seems to be that way. And you just completely throw Trump under the bus, even though Trump said he wasn't aware of it. And you go on Charlie Kirk's show, who's very close with Trump, and you say that, oh, yeah, America knew, Trump knew. It's very, come on now. So it's the arrogance, but it's also the power because he's not worried about any repercussions or anything. He knows that Israel has a stranglehold on Trump. It just is what it is. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing. So the arrogance and the power, I'm just peeping.
As well. And so Israel struck at the top level of the remaining Hamas in Qatar in an attempt to basically change the negotiating status. So the basic idea here is if you will not negotiate, if you refuse to get to the end of this war, well, then maybe we'll find somebody who can. Or maybe the idea is that you're safe nowhere until this war ends. Additional pressure had to be brought to bear, and that's why Israel did what it did. Obviously, I, as well, am on Team Civilization. I'm very happy to see Hamas's top leaders killed. I hope that as many of them in the leadership, with as little loss of civilian life as possible. I hope that as many of them died in this attack as humanly possible. And again, I'd be very surprised. I mean, we do know actually from contemporaneous reporting that the United States was at least given the heads up on the Israeli operation in the moments before it went.
I hope as many of them die as possible. Who does Ben Shapiro think he is? Does he really believe this chosen people stuff? Who do you think you are for God's commandments to be violated? You're cheering on God's commandments being violated. We're not supposed to kill, right? But you're celebrating the violation of God's commandments. This is, either we're going to fix it or y'all better, it may be time to start building that ark. It may be time to start building that ark. When people are so forefront with their evil, and it gets to a point where you can cheerlead and celebrate, the most religious people are cheerleading and celebrating, violating God's commandments, just from that standpoint. And the reason why they're cheerleading it, because they think that they're intelligent enough. And most of us choose sides when it comes to these type of situations. But Ben Shapiro, he thinks that the value of an Israeli life is more important and more significant than a Palestinian life. Forget Hamas, right? Forget making it about Hamas, because they like to throw Hamas out there like it's a terrorist group. And what makes, let me ask y'all this question. And I may have asked y'all I don't think I asked y'all this on the live show, but I think I discussed it when we were putting this video up and reviewing it. But what makes one group's terror better than another's? Like, what makes it honorable and we should celebrate Christopher Columbus coming here, raping and pillaging and doing all types of stuff, or never coming here, but to the, we never actually made it to North America or the States. But what makes that terror celebrated? What makes us look at Hamas as demons and evil, but then not look at the Israeli government and what they're doing to civilians? What we did to Iraq, killing 500,000 children, all based on lies. What makes, who gets to decide which terror is worse than the other? I would think that would be a position of that God could only take, right? So why is man playing God in this role? Why is Ben Shapiro playing God? Why does he feel like he can celebrate people's lives dying based on what? I understand. To a certain degree, I can even understand how after October 7th, because a lot of people probably didn't really know what was going on in that region. I really didn't have as much of a grasp as I do now as far as what's going on in that region and how Palestinians are treated. I didn't even know how Israel came to be totally honest, until maybe the last couple of years. But then when you start looking into this stuff, you start to realize it's so arrogant to even think that the war started on October 7th. That's a very arrogant standpoint. But to think that you can do certain things to a group of people and the rest of the world look at it and be on it from your side and saying yeah, those are terrorists over there, while we're seeing plain as day with our own eyes the terror that you're committing on people, killing people when they're trying to get food, rationalizing starvation and all these other things that you're doing. But we're supposed to look at y'all like y'all are the heroes and that y'all are doing us a favor. This is demonic. This is why it's very easy. And it's very easy for me to say that this is demonic, because I don't justify any killings. You won't hear me say, and if you do hear me say, please check me immediately. You won't hear me say, oh, well, that death was justified, or that war, that was justified. I don't stand for war. Violence only begets violence. It's very simple. Once we're clear on this, once we can see this plain, I don't understand how we continue to embrace and justify how war is okay, period. Because once we justify war being okay, then there's automatically going to be a certain level of evil that comes with it, because just like people will interpret things to their own best interest, whether it's the Bible, whether it's anything else in life, we're going to do the same things when it's, oh, well, who do we need to commit war against? Oh, these people don't have our same ideals. They don't have our same religion. They don't have There's always going to be a reason to justify it if it's on the table. If war is an option, there will always be a reason to justify it. It just is what it is. Let's keep going. And hold up. We got to acknowledge, shout out to Paul in the building. Christians, pray for the conversion of Solomon Friedman, owner of Pornhub. Mr. OG, please keep saying exactly what you think. That's all. So keep feeding me the information. Keep feeding me the information. I'm going to process it and give y'all my honest opinion on it. That's all. It may not be right. I'm never going to tell y'all to just take what I say and you know, that being the ultimate truth. No, do your own research. Don't be lazy. I wasn't lazy with it. Do your own research, because when you start to look up things on your own, and this is just my opinion. When I start to look up things on my own, what it does is it gives me a wider perspective on what things are actually happening, rather than having the tunnel focus that usually comes with emotions and relying on people to give us information rather than us doing our own research on our own. So let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's see. Oh, what Uncle, right? Uncle, if you really want to talk about it, then talk about why they would send Muslims a truckload of spam knowing that it's pork to starving people. Stop playing. They did not send pork over there. They really sent spam. Somebody check on that, man. Somebody could, hey, Uncle, let me know. Confirm that. Check on that.
I just spent time in Japan, and one of the things that kind of looms over Japan is that Japan, they engaged in an unconditional surrender, that they said, we're done. And they laid down their arms, obviously, after the 2 atomic bombs. Very controversial. People have mixed opinions on it. I certainly do. But that it is unconditional surrender. Is that what Israel is aiming for here? I suppose that is a question that I get a lot on campus. What does success look like? Because I think we could all agree a long war is not good for Israel, a long, drawn-out war. And we're coming towards 2 years in about a month. So it's been about 23 months. So what does ultimate success look like in the Gaza Strip?
Now, my main critique of the Netanyahu administration in Israel and the Netanyahu government is they didn't move faster. I think this should have been a much more accelerated process. Israel set out at the beginning of this war with 2 goals, as articulated by the Israeli government. Goal number 1 was to get as many hostages out as humanly possible to free the hostages. And second was to win the war. In many ways, those are mutually exclusive goals, because if you actually wish to win the war, then you have to do things militarily that are going to involve actual movement on the ground. And meanwhile, Hamas is attempting to basically use the hostages as its own form of human shields. They've used their own civilians as human shields. They're also using the hostages as a form of human shield. And so as you came to the end of the war, this was always going to be the question, is how the war kind of came to its final terminus. The priorities that Netanyahu has laid out publicly include essentially, basically, it's let the hostages out, and there can't be a future military threat to Israel. Those are, if you had to sum it all up, those are the 2 things. How that materializes, in my opinion, is likely to be an Israeli military occupation of large swaths of the Gaza Strip, the setting up of humanitarian areas, particularly on the coast and in Rafah, in which humanitarian aid is provided, a pathway out for people who actually want to leave. This is the only conflict of which I'm aware on planet Earth in which there are outside countries telling people who would like to leave that they literally cannot. The Trump administration has been trying to facilitate the ability of people who want to leave to do so, and has also been trying to facilitate the entry of not only humanitarian aid, but investment into the areas that have been cleared of terrorists. And then you can see some sort of Hamas-free rebuilding. That would be the goal of the end of the war. Now, my understanding is that the sort of last untouched area of the Gaza Strip in terms of Israeli serious military operations is Gaza City. It's why there's been so much focus on Gaza City. Last I heard, Israel already controls something 40 to 50% of the territory in Gaza City. They've been warning people to get out for at least a couple of weeks now. Hamas has been stopping people at checkpoints and turning them back and shooting them if they don't stay in the city to be used as human shields by Hamas. So that's the current situation on the ground.
What other feedback or criticism would you have about this situation? I know that it's impossible for anyone to listen to everything that you ever say, but looking at this from an American perspective, what else would you say things could have been handled differently? Maybe on the PR front, maybe also just on a conduct front. Where would you say, as an outsider, things that could have been handled better, more efficiently, or with more precision?
So number one, there's no such thing as a perfect war. So obviously in any war, there are going to be things that happen that are ugly and that are terrible. And that is why war is a terrible thing. As far as a sort of operational front, again, I've spent an awful lot of time in Israel. I've watched tape of operations happening, drone operations. I've met with an enormous number of Israeli soldiers, young men and women, people who are 18, 19, 20 years old, who have had legitimately their limbs blown off going house to house in an area where they didn't have to. The charge that Israel has been indiscriminate in its use of force in the Gaza Strip is an absurdity on its face. Israel has complete air superiority over the Gaza Strip. If it wanted to level the place and turn it into a parking lot October 8th, it certainly had the military capacity to do so. It has not done that. Instead, it has sacrificed legitimately 1,000 of its own young men, particularly in these.
This guy is insane. Like, I don't know if y'all are following. Like, and I used to think that he was pretty slick with how he was trying to get across his points, but now it's just blatantly obvious. This man is saying that because you have the capability to turn Palestine into a parking lot, and I'm assuming if you have such strong capability, then why do you need our help? Why do you need American assistance? Handle yours on your own. What's the point of needing our help? So here he's trying to say, because we can turn, that's like somebody saying, like, imagine somebody has like machine guns. And they say, like, yo, if I really wanted to, I could have used my machine. Yeah, but you shot him with a pistol or you shot him with a rifle. You get what I'm saying? It's like, oh, because we have the capability to turn it into a parking lot, the fact that we didn't, that shows that we have a great moral compass in this situation. No, you couldn't turn it into a parking lot because the rest of the world would have stepped in like the rest of the world is starting to step in, like y'all are feeling a lot of the pressure that you're starting to feel. That's why you and Bibi Netanyahu are going on this podcast tour to try to save the image of Israel. Because everybody knows what's happening, but now people are willing and have the courage to actually say it. Everybody knows, looking at this situation, what's going on. Ben Shapiro was up here trying to justify and rationalize, you know, certain people being killed in certain situations. And even when you think about I was listening to Dan Bilzerian yesterday, his interview with the Hodge twins, and I've heard either him say this before or another group say it. Maybe Dave Smith said it. Actually, Dave Smith was the one who said it. I just remembered. Could you imagine if there was a terrorist or a shooter in a school? A shooter was in the school. And then we said, you know what? We got to blow up the whole school. The shooter's in the school. We got to send a bomb to. No, you would figure out a different way. You would figure out a different way. I don't think that Americans would be okay with if there was a terrorist group who had hostages and was taking over a hospital, that Americans would be okay with that hospital being bombed if your family members were in that hospital. But because it's over there, yeah, Palestinians, we don't really value their lives. Like, we don't even. Bro, you can't just use it, because think about the green light that gives. They could pretty much bomb everywhere, which they have done. And I mean, when you look at what's going on and just say, oh, yeah, they had Hamas there. Now, no, there's no checks and balance system there. We see that America would probably be the only country that could give Israel some pushback or could have some more insight as far as other countries, because journalists are not allowed in. And we see how America is acting and how Donald Trump is acting. He's tucking in Bibi Netanyahu's chair. Bibi Netanyahu is walking him like a dog. And then when you start to look back and certain things that Bibi Netanyahu has said in the past, how he can manipulate America, how he said that it was good and then tried to correct himself. 9/11 was good for Israel. When you start to listen to these type of things, you start to ask questions and you start to really be convinced that, oh, this group of people just thinks that they're better than everybody. They think that they're just better. They think that their lives are just valued more than other people. The people that they want to take their land or whatever else they want to do, their opposition in that region. They have an elitist problem. They have a Israeli supremacy. I don't know if you want to say it across the board with Jewish supremacy, but they have an Israeli supremacy when it comes to this stuff. An Israeli supremacy. And just like what I say with a lot of other groups, when the quote unquote good cops don't call out the bad cops, when black people try to justify and rationalize the worst of us committing certain acts, when we try to justify and rationalize the people in our group that are committing the worst actions, instead of calling it out, I'm not saying that you hold responsibility, but you can't be surprised when people lump you in that category, because you're condoning and being almost complicit based on the actions. If I sit here and I'm a good cop and I just allow bad cops to do whatever, who else is going to say something? Who else is going to hold that bad cop accountable? Who else is going to make us feel comfortable in saying like, yo, yeah, we don't condone this behavior? I don't hear a lot of people coming out and saying they don't condone the behavior. I hear a lot of people and Bibi Netanyahu celebrating how Israel is the only Jewish state in the world. So, okay, so you're attributing your Judaism principles and being Jewish to Israel. So it's okay to make the connection when everything's good. But then people want to dissociate themselves with the situation and act as if they have no impact in it, no connection to it, when it's not in public opinion and when it doesn't have a favorable public opinion, I would say. That's what I'm seeing.
Areas and thousands more who are wounded for the rest of their lives, going house to house in an attempt to prevent all of that, and is currently shipping in 4,400 calories per day per person into the Gaza Strip, much of which is then stolen by Hamas. So that is not to say that any war is perfect. This war has been conducted in about as meticulous way as any urban war in history. Just because war is ugly doesn't mean that it's being fought wrongly. And I think that the main...
Just because war is ugly doesn't mean that it's fought wrongly. And first off, I hear a lot of people trying to justify this war with comparing it to other urban wars. What urban wars are we talking about? Like, what other wars are we... The whole justifying one war based on, well, what happened in this war, to me, that's out the window. But listen to what he just said. Let me just play it again.
It's perfect. This war has been conducted in about as meticulous way as
Right
any
here.
urban war in history. Just because war is ugly doesn't mean that it's being fought wrongly. And
just because war is ugly doesn't mean it's fought wrongly. Could you imagine Ben Shapiro sitting down with God and having that conversation? Just because war is ugly doesn't mean it's fought wrongly. These are supposed to be staunch religious people, right? Could you imagine Ben Shapiro sitting down with God and saying, just because, you know, this war is ugly and we're killing civilians, we're killing women and children, we're bombing hospitals, doesn't mean that it's fought wrongly. Who do you think would agree with that? If the devil was on this side of the table and God was on this side of the table, who do you think Ben Shapiro's stance would lean more in favor of? This is why I say people who have convinced us that war is okay are the most demonic people, period. Who are you? This is the whole reason. God, based on y'all religions, that y'all tell me. Based on the scriptures, based on God's inspiration. God said that vengeance is not for man. God told man very clearly, there's no interpretation that can come from the commandments and us not supposed to kill. But Ben Shapiro feels that he's intelligent enough, he's smart enough to determine, oh no, well, you know, we can celebrate Hamas deaths. Just because this war is fought ugly, just because civilians are dying. Well, more civilians died in that other war before, so therefore this one is cool. As long as we don't have it, you know, as many civilians die in that war as this one, nah, we're good. This is demonic. These are demonic mindsets. And I don't think it's just Ben Shapiro that embraces this mindset. But clearly we're going to talk about it because that's one of the biggest situations that's occurring right now. And that's who I believe is controlling our government. And this is probably one of the biggest threats to us having a major war that is going to involve more Americans dying and more people dying overall. I don't want people to be dying. I don't care whether you're American, who are you dying for? Most of the people that are actually dying aren't even the people that even know what's going on. It's the pawns that are dying. That's what happens in war. From the beginning of time, who dies in wars?
And I think that the main mistake that Israel has made is misunderstanding how public relations works, in the sense that they couldn't have presented this war in a better, kinder way that people would have loved. What they could have done is move faster. And the reality is that the American way of doing war is to win as fast as possible. And we don't like long, drawn-out occupations. We don't like long, drawn-out military operations. That's true in Iraq. It's true in Afghanistan. It's true in Ukraine. It's true in the Gaza Strip. And so the kind of things that we Americans like to see are, for example...
First off, chill with this we stuff. you're not an American, bro. Stop it. I don't care what your lineage is. Your affiliation is to Israel. Doesn't it say that also in the books? You can't serve two masters. I think it says that somewhere as well. When Ben Shapiro says, "Oh, well, we should have just moved faster," that's been my only critique. We should have moved faster. Take a step back, because this man speaks very fast and he doesn't have a lot of breaths, to where it's like it just goes on, and you start to wonder, like, yo, what did I even hear? Like I'm trying to figure, like, what did he say? He said that his only critique was that Israel didn't move faster. What does moving faster, considering that they've pummeled, what, like 80 to 90% of the country? What would moving faster have looked like? Most of the time when you move faster, you're not as careful. And because he didn't elaborate on what he meant when he said move faster, how are we supposed to, what should we take away from that? That we should be moving faster, or that Israel should have moved faster. Who do you think you are? What do you think you are? I don't, and see, this is where a lot of this fear comes into play. I'm gonna tell you exactly what's happening. This is why Bibi Netanyahu, why Ben Shapiro, why all of these very radical Zionist and pro-Israeli people are going so hard to try to control this narrative. Because people are starting to wake up. People are starting to wake up and say, hold on. Is there really white supremacy that is this white supremacy, or is this somebody else who had power over white and black people in America, and they just seem to be controlling the pieces, and this was their entire plan to pin this group against that group while this group, and it just really makes you wonder. It really just makes you wonder, like, who's manipulating what? How do I keep the eyes and the attention off of me and my success and how we've been reigning supreme for a very long time? How do I keep people off of that? Oh, well, I'm going to celebrate. Oh, no, I ain't got no money. What do rich people do? No, they got money. I ain't got. They try to pass it off to another group, amp another group up to now go back and forth with. We see what's going on here. How people are comfortable getting on TV or getting on podcasts and saying this stuff is insane to me. It just shows where we are in society.
Example, the operations against Hezbollah that took about 3 weeks to 5 weeks, or the operation against Iran, which took about 12 days, right? Those are operations that any ally of the United States can sustain. Long operations like the one that Israel has been performing in the Gaza Strip are inherently very, very difficult from PR level. And I'm not sure, to be frank, that there is a way for Israel to, quote unquote, win the PR war in the middle of a very long war against an intransigent terrorist enemy that legitimately embeds itself in the most damaging places.
A claim I receive often, and we're starting our campus tour tomorrow, is that Israel is committing genocide. How do you respond to that, Ben?
There's literally no definition of genocide by which Israel is committing a genocide. Typically, a genocide involves the targeted killing of the vast majority of the population, or at least an attempt to do so. There has never been a genocide attempted in world history in which the food that was being shipped in was more than the daily caloric intake of the average American into the areas where you're supposedly attempting to genocide the population.
You're shipping in food that, to my understanding, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, you're bragging about the food that it exceeds the calorie intake, caloric intake, whatever. But Ben Shapiro, don't they need water for the food that y'all are sending in? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these people don't even have access to water. So this stuff is, and maybe we would know better if you guys allowed journalists in. Maybe we would have a better understanding of it. This is this mindset is dangerous.
The total population loss in the Gaza Strip thus far has been 3%. During the Holocaust, just to take a reference, it was 50%. During Rwanda, it was significantly higher than 3%. You don't issue leaflet warnings to people. You don't go house to house in a genocide in an attempt to.
So because there's a larger percentage of people killed in the Holocaust, now this is okay. Like, how did we get to this point? How did we get to this
reduce
point?
Civilian casualties? I understand that people use genocide at this point to just mean thing I don't like. And I get that. I understand. Nobody likes war. Nobody wants war. Certainly not the Israelis who are.
He's trying to insult our intelligence. So let me look at what it says when it comes to genocide. He's trying to insult our intelligence, and he's doing it. That was in a very clever way. He's like, look, people don't really, he's telling us what we really mean. Look, people don't really mean genocide. What they really mean is that I just don't like this. No, we really mean genocide. like just to be very clear, Ben Shapiro, we have dictionaries, we have Google, we have ChatGPT. We can look this stuff up ourselves as well. Stop trying to hold yourself in this elitist mindset. No, trust me, the people, they don't mean genocide. I get it. I'm not even offended by it because they don't mean it. Like the arrogance of these chosen people. So let me read to you what it says on ChatGPT. It says the most widely accepted legal definition of genocide comes from the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in 1948, which that's funny. Genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Y'all remember that Jay-Z on it's not Moment of Clarity, it's Lyrical Exercise, when he starts off the song saying, I'm leading the league in at least 6 statistical categories. That's what I just heard, like right now. I'm like, y'all are leading the league in like all of these categories that they're naming. Y'all are like exhibiting that same behavior. And the only one that you can kind of sit back, well, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, well, they're kind of killing people. Like, I guess that would prevent the births. But you're starving people. You're bombing hospitals. Like, yo, this is, I heard, I forget where it came from. I think it was like, they were talking about somebody who was into Marxism or one of the Marxist principles, or maybe it wasn't that, but maybe it was one of the 48 laws of power. I don't know. But they were saying how you accuse people of doing exactly what you're doing in the moment, and it confuses us. It's like, well, nobody would have the arrogance to do the very thing that they're accusing other people of. You know what I mean? And this seems to be something that it's like, we will just say something, even though it may go against our exact actions. We'll just say it and put it out there. And, you know, we'll convince some people, other people won't care, and we'll just see how it plays out. So it says the key points of genocide, the intent. Genocide requires a specific intent to destroy a protected group, not just random mass killing. I'm pretty sure that when you go to that clean break memo that I've referenced a bunch of times, that Bibi Netanyahu had a few people who were in our American government 20, 30 years ago, I believe it was like 20-something years ago, where he had them construct this clean break memo that pretty much gives a detailed plan of them not wanting peace in that area, them not wanting a two-state solution, but them wanting to use certain situations, just like they used 9/11, to accomplish their agenda. That's what's happening. Unless my eyes are lying to me, unless my eyes are lying to me, then that's what's happening. And that's why you had Bibi Netanyahu, as I said earlier, come out after 9/11 and say, this is good for Israel. Think about that. This is the person that's coming up here saying that what's good for Israel is good for America. He's telling, Bibi Netanyahu is telling people, you can't be MAGA if you're not pro-Israel. Like, the nerve it is, like. So, all right, man, let's move on. Oh my God. All right. So it says, oh, real quick. So the last two key points are protected groups. The law covers national, ethnic, racial, and religious groups. Political or social groups are not included in this legal definition. Genocide is not only killing, it can also include preventing births, transferring children, or creating life conditions that cause destruction. I don't know, Benny boy, but seems like it's pretty aligned with a genocide to me.
Not at war on October 6th. The fact is that every Israeli family has to send their 18.
I don't know if y'all caught that.
And I get that. I understand. Nobody likes war. Nobody wants war. Certainly not the Israelis who are not at war on October 6th.
You don't get to decide when you're at war. And keep in mind, I am not for war. But you don't get to decide. I'm pretty sure that let's take it. If I was born into slavery, I'm at war. Like, we're at war. Like, I'm not going to let my slave master maybe know. I'm not just going to give him the heads up and approach it like maybe the old militaries used to approach, and you say, hey, we're going to meet up here and we're going to fight. No, because that's not in my best interest. But we are at war. Make no mistake, anybody oppressing me, we are at war. So that means we need to find peace. I'm not saying that we need war. And obviously, y'all know, hey, I'm not for violence. But to sit here and say that October 6th, you were not at war, you have the privilege of not feeling like you're at war because you are the oppressor, because you're the one that's more powerful. The bully that's at school, he doesn't feel like he's in, he's not tripping over nothing. He probably doesn't even really think that the people he bullying, he got real beef with. But when he comes into a room, the people that he picks on, yes, they feel like, yo, we're at war. Like, we're tensed up. Like, this is a problem. He's saying that on October 6th, you were not at war, so that therefore we can justify, oh, we're just responding to something. Well, when you took their homes to create Israel, should they not feel that they were at war? If your land means as much as it means to you, why should their land and their homes that they are actually living in not mean the same to them? But you get to determine when we're at war or not.
The fact is that every Israeli family has to send their 18-year-old son or daughter off to the military with the possibility that they're going to get blown up in Gaza. That is not something that any Israeli wants, right, left, or center.
I think we saw enough of this. So Vaughn's asked a question. He said, so y'all saying Tyler was paid to delete Charlie? I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying anything. I'm waiting to figure out even if this is I don't know. Look, looking at these situations, when you look at JFK, when you look at MLK, when you look at a lot of these people who we've seen assassinated, when you think about the fact that Donald Trump hasn't even had, like, it seemed like a real investigation to want to find out who shot him. When you think about a lot of these things, I don't know if Tyler, I don't know anything. I don't feel that I know anything in this situation. But I will go back and look at the things that people are saying and draw my own conclusion. But I don't know anything right now. I'm presenting it with y'all so we can try to figure this out. This is detective work. It's detective work to find the truth. So let's I want to go to this Tim Pool. This is the video that we were gonna start off with. But this Tim Pool, I'm sorry, not Tim Pool, Tim Dillon. Tim Dillon, where is it? Is this it? All right, boom. All right, we already got it queued up. Let me pull this up for y'all. Can y'all see the tab? All right, let me do full screen. So for all these questions, look, I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask questions. I think where we go wrong is when we start assuming and throwing stuff out there. However, when we look at the people who have been trying to throw things out there the most, it seems like it's Bibi Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro trying to get ahead of the narrative. That's what it seems like to me, throwing out all these different names. And we're going to see Ben Shapiro do that on, I think we have that queued up on Bill Maher's show. You have the timestamp? Yeah, I can use X. All right. So we'll watch this first and then we'll get into that. All right. Let's start.
Required see website for details. Zone. Thank you very much for coming. Max Blumenthal, editor-in-chief of the Gray Zone. Thank you very much for coming on. You wrote an article that's going viral. You wrote it with your wife, Anya Parampil, about, obviously this horrific event that happened in Utah. And you were describing, firsthand accounts of things that Charlie had told his close friends in the weeks leading up to his death. And a lot of it concerned the pressure that was being put on him by Israeli billionaires for questioning some of the things happening in Gaza, and then as well some of the new anti-Semitism laws. And how did you put together this story? I mean, I know you don't ask a journalist to reveal their sources, but how exactly do you compile this piece?
Well, just to answer your question before I get into the piece, I have been following Charlie Kirk for 10 years, since almost soon after he started TPUSA when he was a teenager. And I was following him as a critic or an opponent. I saw him as this kind of very hardworking, highly articulate, sort of like superhuman, ultra-conservative operative that the Israel lobby had basically hijacked, and they were using him to create the biggest Republican or conservative youth movement in history, TPUSA, and use it to advance Israel's program in the US alongside all of the kind of conservative social issues he wanted to push, and recruit the youth and train them and make sure that they stayed completely aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu's Israel. And these billionaire donors, they're American, but they're loyal to Israel primarily. And they actually don't care about issues like abortion or LGBTQ, or maybe some of them don't like mass immigration because they think immigrants might turn against Israel, but their issue is Israel. And Charlie Kirk was going to advance that for them. And in exchange, he'd be built up as like the biggest conservative youth leader in history. So I've been following him for 10 years. I have no reason to say anything. Obviously, I was horrified by his killing. And I think it's a terrible omen for this country, but I have no reason to say anything positive about him or to think that he was anything less than a complete cadre for the Israel lobby. And they basically owned him. They basically controlled him. Well, and he started to move away. And I was hearing about, just to tell you about how this kind of, this article came into being, I was hearing about this before he was killed, that something through the grapevine. I mean, I grew up in Washington. I've been in the city, so people talk. And, honestly, even though I'm more from the left, people from the Trump administration and around the Trump administration talk more to us than the Biden administration did. They talk more to alternative media. So I was hearing about the pressure that Charlie Kirk was under in the months before he was killed. This was not unfamiliar to me. And so I decided to go back to some sources that we had and ask what was, for more details.
Well, even as somebody who you were a political opponent of his, it's obvious, seeing a lot of people gleefully celebrating his vicious murder, obviously you don't have to agree with someone to not delight in their murder. I mean, I've been surprised, friends of mine, people that I know, and their reactions to this have actually shocked me and shaken me a little bit. I want to get back to this turn that he makes. Do you have a timestamp on when he's starting to question really Israeli influence in American domestic politics? Because I'm reading your article and you talk about, your source is talking about Charlie kind of starting to question the amount of influence that Israel has in U.S., not only domestic politics, but foreign politics as well. Do you put this right around the time that we attack Iran? Is this before that? Is this after that? How, what do you know about his progression?
Let me just close a window here because I have some noise coming in.
He never comes back. No.
So yeah, this is I'll come. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is one of the most fascinating stories I've witnessed in American politics. It could be the theme of a film or a documentary or a book. Charlie Kirk began coming under pressure from his own base. I would say, I actually forgot which year it was, but it was like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was called the Groyper Wars. And Charlie Kirk would do these TPUSA tours around the country, and young men would file in, and they would, you get to question Charlie Kirk and debate him. And they hit him from an angle he never expected. They were from this organization called the Groypers, which sort of follows Nick Fuentes. They're anti-Israel. They're kind of anti-Jewish. Some people call them white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. They're very anti-Israel, and they believe they're the true voice of America first because the U.S. government has fallen under the control of this malign foreign power in Israel. And so they would confront Charlie Kirk with the history of, for example, the USS Liberty, the U.S. naval ship that was deliberately struck by the Israeli military in the 1967 war in order to cripple that boat because it was a surveillance boat. It was listening to Israeli communications. And they killed scores of sailors. And they would confront Charlie Kirk with the difference between Israeli interests and American interests while holding up a cross. And Charlie Kirk would just shut down the conversation because he knew that if he would give an inch to them, it would threaten the relationship with his donors and TPUSA would collapse. Now, after October 7th, the pressure was just too extreme. The whole grassroots of the conservative movement, everyone under 35, started to question the U.S.-Israel relationship because they wanted to be America first. And they saw Netanyahu just leading Trump around by the balls. They saw Miriam Adelson, this Israeli intelligence asset billionaire, just calling shots inside the White House. And a lot of them are pro-life and were horrified by the slaughter of babies that they saw in Gaza. So the bottom dropped out of right-wing youth support for Israel to the point where now only about 25% of Republicans under 35 support Israel over Palestine. So Charlie Kirk has to answer to his own grassroots base, and you can hear he's starting to make some noises. He's talking about October 7th possibly being an inside job. Israel let it happen in order to carry out long-term political goals. He starts to question whether Jeffrey Epstein was an Israeli Mossad agent at a time when the Epstein files were becoming an uncomfortable issue for Trump. And it all blew out into the open at TPUSA's July Youth Summit in, I believe it was Tampa, Florida.
Yeah.
Might have been Tallahassee.
Yeah, Tucker gave the speech.
Right.
Right.
So Tucker gave a speech. I mean, that was the seminal moment. But it wasn't just Tucker. Megyn Kelly had started questioning Israel, and she's on stage calling Jeffrey Epstein a Mossad agent with Charlie. Comic Dave Smith, who, like myself, is a Jewish anti-Zionist, but he more comes from kind of the libertarian world. So he was welcomed on stage to debate a Zionist propagandist who works for Newsweek, Joshua Hammer. Debate, no, that's not something you want, especially at this point, if you are like a pro-Israel enforcer. And Dave Smith was openly talking about the slaughter of children in Gaza, and the crowd was cheering in this cathartic way. Then Tucker comes out, says, you should have your citizenship yanked if
Am I back in?
I just see the census screen right now. Yeah, you're back, but it's just you.
My apologies. My apologies. My apologies. My apologies. I accidentally pressed the button. My apologies. Do me a favor, like and subscribe. While we're stopped, make sure you like and subscribe. Can you hear me, Buck?
Yeah.
of American Jewish youth go to Israel and fight for their army
Send a link.
instead of our own. So that's a direct blow to not just the Israel lobby, but like the whole concept of Jewish communal life as it's understood by its leadership. Then Tucker calls out Bill Ackman, who's one of the biggest Netanyahu money men inside the US, who's pulling strings at Harvard, getting their funding pulled unless they.
Y'all thought they shut down the stream, didn't y'all? Nah, I got this new remote, and like you press the button on the side and it just closes out whatever screen you're in. But let's keep going, my bad.
They crack down on Palestine activism, and he questions Bill Ackman. He calls him a scam artist and said, how did he make $9 billion? Like, where did it come from? I mean, and Bill Ackman, the next day, he couldn't really answer the question. He published like a 5,000 word meltdown Twitter post trying to defend his financial investments. It was just bonkers. I'd never seen anything like it. And it was all Charlie Kirk's fault for sanctioning, for giving basically the people what they wanted. And after that, he started getting publicly attacked. Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, the two biggest Zionist enforcers in the media, who are very close to Netanyahu, biggest forces lobbying Trump to wage war on Iran, went off on TPUSA, said we can't be having a Big Ten if it includes kooks. Laura Loomer, we all know who she is. She publicly attacked Charlie Kirk and said he basically had to step down. He was getting attacked in pro-Israel media. What we didn't know, which I learned, is in private, the pressure was even more intense. He was being bombarded with text messages. And at some point, Netanyahu personally called him and offered to basically fund his organization to new levels that he never even imagined, which meant, Zionist Israeli takeover, complete like recapture of TPUSA, an organization they basically helped create. And Charlie Kirk turned him down. Now, after Charlie Kirk was killed, we know that Netanyahu wouldn't stop posting about him. Like minutes after he was killed, when his body was still warm, Netanyahu was posting about him, interrupting his 7-front war in the Middle East and his global assassination spree, where he's trying to kill people even inside a U.S. ally in Qatar.
Can you remember any time that in the history of a political assassination that the leader of a foreign government has come out to deny that they were behind it? I mean,
I've never seen anything like that.
Right. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it was.
Hold up.
So Netanyahu has to ultimately.
Hold on. So Tim Dillon just said, have you ever heard of a situation like this where a foreign leader had to come out and deny? Some of y'all may not be aware of this. Hold on. I wasn't going to play this clip now, but since they talked about it, trust me, y'all will want to see this. You will want to see this. And let me be very clear. Hold on. Let me be very clear. Hold on. Let me get to the part. Hold on. I didn't even have it queued up. I think I got it queued up here. But when you see this, I'm gonna wait to. I'm not even gonna say anything. Hold on. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm gonna let y'all watch it, and then you tell me, because I don't want to say anything until after. All right. Hold on.
I think it's so.
Hold on.
Behind the Charlie Kirk. Before, I want to talk to you when you're here in New York for the UN General Assembly, because there's a lot more on this I want to talk to. I want to talk about about the countries that stop sending weapons and everything else. But before I let you go, I want you to address one thing, and it's just the absurdity of it. Some of the internet rumors that somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder, and I don't believe it for 1 second, but I want you to make a statement. It's so absurd.
That's insane. That's insane. Israel also changes the orbit of the moon. Israel pushes the sun. I mean, the whole thing it's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid, and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying that. They just found the perpetrator. They'll get to the bottom of this. But they go, they have no limits. When you hate Jews, when you hate the Jewish state, you're willing to say anything and promote all these absurd rumors. And by the way, they're willing to kill us all the time. I mean, that's what they're doing. And over the centuries, when Jews, especially in the Middle Ages, the horrific Middle Ages, the worst things were said about Jews you couldn't possibly believe. We were poisoning the wells. We were drinking the blood of Christian children. You name it. I mean, these things, that continued actually up to the Holocaust. The Nazis said the same thing. You know, we're carrying vermin, we're spreading disease. And people believed it. And every time they believed it, this was a prelude to a greater and greater massacre, culminating with the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust. Well, since then, we've learned, A, when people spread these lies about us, prepare yourself for the assault. And, you know, they're trying to delegitimize the state of Israel. Charlie Kirk said to me that, he wrote me this detailed letter, you have to fight the slander. These untruths, these vilifications have consequences. And he was right. But I'll tell you one thing, we're fighting on the battlefield against the terrorists and winning. And he was fighting on the battlefield of ideas.
All right, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, this letter. So I believe Candace Owens came out and she dared Bibi Netanyahu to put out the entire letter, because what they're saying is that Charlie Kirk's letter to Bibi Netanyahu, it may have included certain things like this, but it was pretty much Charlie Kirk who was at odds with Bibi Netanyahu and a lot of Zionist pro-Israel people who wanted to fund his organization, and he no longer wanted to receive funding based on what we're all hearing and all this stuff. Now, obviously, you take anything with a grain of salt, right? But there's a lot of people on Charlie Kirk's side who said, well, we've seen the messages. Tucker Carlson came out and he said, I've seen the messages that Charlie Kirk was getting pressured. Charlie Kirk came out and said that he was getting pressured. Charlie Kirk came out and said that he's been getting pressured. He's been receiving threats. He came out and said this before. We just didn't pay attention to it. Obviously, it wasn't as big of a situation. But think about the question and how it started off. And this is how a lot of these influencers, these politicians, how they move the goalposts. It went from her, even how she positioned the question, which in my opinion, I don't know why journalists do stuff like this, but whenever journalists start giving these questions and saying, well, I think this is just ridiculous for me to even have to ask you, I don't believe it, but there's people that are saying, it's like, why do you feel the need to say all that? The reason why you feel the need to say all that, in my opinion, is because you know that you are scared of Bibi Netanyahu in Israel. So therefore, you know that it's a legitimate question. You know that it's a legitimate question, not saying that it's true or anything like that. But based on certain things that we've seen in the past and how these things have connected, it's a legitimate question. Based on Bibi Netanyahu's actions, even acting like, it's like, bro, you're acting like you got a guilty conscience, like you're trying to get ahead of this stuff. You tweeted before Trump even tweeted with Charlie Kirk's passing. Like the audacity and arrogance solely with that, to try to get ahead and to act as if Charlie Kirk was just fighting for Israel when everything is aligning and saying something different, that he was having a change of opinion, that he was having a change of heart, or even if it wasn't a change of heart, his stance was changing. So Bibi Netanyahu went from being asked if he and Israel contributed to Charlie Kirk's assassination, and he, for one, he starts stumbling. I've never seen Bibi Netanyahu like at a loss of words for like that. Like, it's insane. It's stupid, looking down and all. Now, you may be uncomfortable. Nobody knows how they would react to somebody accusing them of doing something. So I'm not even saying to look too far into that, because when I initially watched it, I was looking a lot into that, where it's like, yo, he seems uncomfortable. Maybe he is just uncomfortable. But when people start then trying to become the victim after you're being questioned about, you being the assassin, contributing to the case, but now you're trying to embrace the victimhood. It's like, oh, well, that they'll kill us for anything. They'll say anything about us. And we've learned that they say, it's like, bro, all you had to do was answer the question. You did not have to give all these different reasons and history lessons and how people have changed your words in the past. Like, stop it. It just makes you look, it makes us look into it even more, in my opinion, but maybe not. All right, so I just wanted to play that. We'll play the rest of his answer, and then we'll get back to the Tim Dillon video, because that Tim Dillon video is important.
And I think he was winning. He was going to win. That's why they shot him. I hope they don't silence him. I don't think people will give. And he was fighting on the battlefield of ideas. And I think he was winning. He was going to win. That's why they shot him. I hope they don't silence him. I don't think people will give in to these ridiculous, ridiculous lies. But more importantly, I think that his legacy of defending free speech, defending freedom, defending the right to defend yourself, and Israel's right to defend itself, I think this is a legacy that will endure. And I trust that those Americans who are listening to us know what is the real American patriotism, what is the real policy.
How is he? How do you know? Like what? Like how is he telling us? I trust that Americans know what's the real American. How do you know? The arrogance, and you look very funny when you're on here trying to act as if you're trying to paint Charlie in a picture that the closest people around him have acknowledged that he was moving in a different direction. So with you doing the most to try to paint him in a different picture than the people who are close to it, it looks very funny and suspicious.
It's not MAGA to support Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah and these other killers. It's not MAGA to basically advance those calls to annihilate the Jewish state. It's not MAGA to align with the policies of the ultra-left on Israel. It's this horseshoe effect when you hear...
I would say, who is he to say what and what isn't MAGA? I would say that. But based on how it seems as if he's controlling Trump, maybe he can say that. Maybe he can say what's MAGA and what's not MAGA. And this reminded me of, I actually put it in the video. Y'all remember when Trump was sitting down with Zelensky? And Zelensky, he got mad at Zelensky because Zelensky said they were talking about the war with Russia, and they were saying, like, if you don't do this, Zelensky was telling Trump and JD Vance, like, if you don't do this, this is going to impact Americans. And Trump lashed out and he said, no, you don't know what's going to happen with America. You don't know what's going to happen with America. So you see Trump defend what's his, or he sees as his, to have Bibi Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, when you got a lot of conservatives that Trump is losing friendship and losing partnerships, the people that put him in the presidency are disagreeing with him over Bibi Netanyahu. He's going to now tell the people of America what MAGA is. And you're not this, if you don't support us, you're not, like, what? Like, who? I ain't hear Trump say anything though.
The ultra left and the ultra deranged people on the right coming together like a horseshoe. That's not what Charlie believed. And Charlie was right.
Yeah, man. This sounds very MLK-ish. You know how people die and they try to paint them in a different picture, or Muhammad Ali can't talk anymore. Now they're trying to paint him in a different... I don't know. All right, back to Tim Dillon. That's what y'all want to see. I know y'all want to see this one because this is an interesting one. All right, keep going.
Deny that Israel was involved in an interview on news.
Right. I mean, yeah.
I mean, it was, so Netanyahu has to ultimately deny that Israel was involved in an interview on Newsmax with Greta Van Susteren. Newsmax is another institution that Israel controls. Its CEO, Chris Ruddy, was just in Israel with Netanyahu, basically shining his shoes in public. So Netanyahu goes there and says, this is like, to accuse us of killing Charlie Kirk or having a role in this is like a medieval blood libel and the Holocaust. And when Netanyahu says that, it probably leads some Gentiles to wonder if there was something to those blood libels. I mean, when someone that sleazy and that blood-soaked links innocent Jews to the murderous campaign that Israel's carrying out, it's bad. It's actually bad for the Jews when he says that. But I've never seen anything like this. And I've never seen anything like what Netanyahu was doing relating to a tragedy or a crime in the United States since 9/11. Netanyahu blamed Muslims for Charlie Kirk's killing explicitly on Fox News. He was trying to milk it as much as he could, but it blew back on him because he's become a prime suspect. But after 9/11, Netanyahu said in in comments widely reported in Israeli media. You can look this up. He said 9/11 was good for Israel. And it's the same way that he saw Charlie Kirk's killing as being good for Israel. He thought he actually probably thought a Muslim was responsible. And he thought he could blame the left and the Palestine Solidarity movement and get them shut down by the FBI. And so in a way, he was kind of thrilled by what had happened. And that fuels the speculation. But the real issue was, as we learned from a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk, who had spoken to him, I would say, a week or two before he was killed about this, he was afraid of Netanyahu, and he was afraid of these billionaire cutouts of Netanyahu, who had many of whom had funded his organization.
So
let
me ask you a question.
Yeah.
What would he be afraid of? I mean, obviously, you know, you have an organization that's well funded by people that expect something for their money, right? They're not giving it to you for free. Did you get the feeling that he was only afraid of reputational damage or, you know, losing money, or did his fears extend to his life?
Well, that's what Harrison Smith, who is a personality at InfoWars, the pro-Trump outlet, has said, based on a source he spoke to. I don't know him. I don't know what source he spoke to, but he said this on August 13th. So almost a month before Charlie Kirk was killed, he said Charlie Kirk fears that Israel will kill him if he continues ahead, providing space in the largest conservative youth organization in American history, which is the institutional grassroots apparatus of Trump and the Republican Party, for Israel critics and even anti-Zionists. So that I didn't say that. I don't have I can't see any hard material evidence that Israel had him killed, but there's this fear when you go against the Israel lobby and you're that powerful. And it's a fear that I've been told Donald Trump shares. I've been told that by
that was my next question.
Several Trump.
All right, hold on. Before we get into that, because that's a whole nother, hold up. Before we get into that, I want to go back to, because he was talking about how Netanyahu accused this of being a radical Muslim. I want to take the time to go to this clip with Ben Shapiro. And this is what I'm saying. Like, nobody knows any of this information, right? But it seems like, and this has been a thing with Netanyahu. He keeps saying, and has been saying for the longest, you remember the Tucker Carlson interview with Ted Cruz, and they were addressing how Netanyahu continues to say that Iran had 2 death threats or tried to commit murder on Trump twice. Like, they said that they tried it twice. And Tucker and a lot of other people are saying, like, yo, which ones? Like, which ones are we talking about? Which situations? The dude on the roof in Butler? Like that was Iran, or like who? Everybody's at. And then Ted Cruz in that interview said, no, he misspoke. But Netanyahu has continued to say that. So now it's like, now Netanyahu's saying that it was a Muslim group or whatever. Now listen to Ben Shapiro on this. Like, why are y'all making all these accusations with such limited information unless y'all know something that we don't know, have some type of intelligence on it that we're not aware of? But listen to this.
If there's a shooting at a synagogue, it is very likely to be either a white supremacist or a radical Muslim. If it is a shooting of a Republican politician, it is very likely to be a trans Antifa Marxist shooter.
That is just not true.
We
don't know what this kid is.
We do know this kid was of the left. We do know that.
We do know what?
That this kid was of the political left. That is according to contemporaneous reporting from The Guardian as well as Tablet Magazine today.
It's 2 days out. We don't know shit, Ben.
But
we don't know shit. They never do. The internet is undefeated in getting it wrong to begin with.
It's not about the internet. That's about the actual reporting by mainstream accepted. The Guardian is not a right-wing.
Here's what we heard. Here's what I was told so far, and I'll tell you what was wrong. First, I heard he's a registered Republican. Not true. Okay. Then he was a donor to Trump. Not true. His father works in the sheriff's office. Not true. There was a picture of him wearing a pro-Trump shirt. Not true. Member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Not true. We don't know what he is.
Well,
how are you so sure he's of the left? Now, I agree when you write on a bullet, what did he write on the bullet? Catch
this fascist, which is also a gamer thing.
Okay, but now I'm hearing he may have been part of that group for whom Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough.
You mean the Groypers? Yes. I mean, so that would.
You're sure he's not that?
I'm not sure that he's not that.
A minute ago you were sure what he was.
Hold on, Bill. Hold on. Okay, because I've been.
You were.
This man went from saying we're sure he's of the left. And then when Bill Maher brings up, well, actually, now people are throwing out this thing, saying it's the Groypers, saying that it's that this group, obviously it's Nick Fuentes and his group. Obviously, a lot of, people come here because of the review videos that we do on Nick. So when now people throwing out this Groyper stuff, Bill Maher brings it up and he says, well, yeah, I'm not sure that it's not them as well. It's like, yo, what? You just came on here and said you could be sure that it's people of the left. I don't think Nick Fuentes and the Groypers would be considered as of the left to Ben Shapiro. I don't think that. But it's just stuff to question. It's just stuff to question. But let's get back to Tim Dillon. Hold on. Let's get back to Tim Dillon, because this may be a bit more shocking than everything that we've heard about Charlie Kirk, which you're getting ready to see. All right. So make sure you give me a like. Make sure you give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get to it.
When you go against the Israel lobby and you're that powerful, and it's a fear that I've been told Donald Trump shares. I've been told that by
that was my next question.
Several Trump insiders.
My next question is, does the president of the United States fear for his life?
Yes. Yes, I mean, obviously he fears for his life, and I was told that he feared for his life before the 2 assassination attempts, one coming within a millimeter of striking his head. I mean, let's not forget about that.
But I mean, just to clarify, he doesn't fear for his life because of Ireland.
I mean, I've been told, yes, that Israel is a major source of concern for Trump. I mean, think about it. What would happen
this is
if the
our
president
ally.
If he suspended
arms
if he suspended arms to a country that carries out assassinations all across the globe, that specializes in assassinations, that has an entire wing of its intelligence services that conducts assassinations, including with household goods like pagers, would you not be scared? So yes, Trump is scared. And what I learned from this source, who is a Trump insider, someone who talks to who talks to people in the Oval Office, people close to Trump, is that during one of Netanyahu's many visits to the U.S. this year, some figures in his retinue, Israeli agents, placed electronic devices on emergency response Secret Service vehicles. The Secret Service found them and they reported this to the White House. These would be emergency response vehicles that would respond to an incident potentially involving the president. All right, some people watching this might be dismissing me as crazy right now, and I wasn't able to confirm this. I can't just call up the Secret Service and have them tell me that. But in 2019, 3 former high-ranking U.S. officials from the Trump administration told Politico that listening devices were found around the White House and at sensitive locations across Washington targeting President Trump. They wanted to listen to his calls and communications, and they were planted by Israel. You just go look that up while I'm speaking right now. Boris Johnson, the former Israeli prime minister.
Very quickly, according to ChatGPT, it's official that in September 2019, Politico published an investigation citing U.S. officials who said that Israel was most likely behind surveillance devices found near the White House and other sensitive locations in Washington, D.C. These devices mimic cell towers and can capture cell phone data. They were reportedly discovered by the Department of Homeland Security. So how the U.S. responded, the Trump administration reportedly did not publicly rebuke or punish Israel, unlike how it would typically respond to espionage from other countries. President Trump said he didn't believe the story, but U.S. intelligence sources told Politico they were confident the devices were linked to Israel. Israel's response. Israel's prime minister's office strongly denied the allegations, calling them a blatant lie. How surprising. How surprising for them to respond that way and for Trump to respond that way. And it's funny because if you go back to 2019 and the amount of trust that a lot of people may have had with Trump, or even not even the trust from a liking standpoint, but the amount of trusting Trump to be this type of person that he doesn't answer to anybody and this type of thing, right? He's the bully. I think things have changed significantly about how we're looking at Trump in regards to his relationship with Bibi Netanyahu and who's the alpha when those two are in the room. I think right now when we look at this, we're like, yo, Trump lying. Like, of course Trump gonna say that. Of course Trump is gonna say that. And then when you have Ted Cruz come out and say, yeah, Israel spies on us, and Tucker Carlson presses him, and Ted Cruz acts like, it's no big deal. This man
wrote in his memoirs that Benjamin Netanyahu asked to use his bathroom, his personal toilet, and that British security found his bathroom. He wrote in his memoir. Now, Boris Johnson, the former Israeli prime minister, wrote in his memoirs that Benjamin Netanyahu asked to use his bathroom, his personal toilet, and that British security found a listening device planted in his personal toilet immediately after Netanyahu left. So Netanyahu himself dropped a listening device in the British prime minister's toilet. Like, never let Netanyahu take a dump at your house.
Let me ask you a question. In your estimation, why do things like this not damage relations between the U.S. and Israel more, or the UK and Israel? You know, when an ally is found to be, now everybody spies on everybody, but when you are putting a listening device in the prime minister's bathroom, or you're putting, reportedly putting tracking devices on Secret Service emergency response vehicles, where is the fallout from that? Is there any? Is there any diplomatic fallout from that?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, think of all the things Israel does. Israel just is seeking to drag the U.S. into an all-out war with Iran. Where's the fallout from that? The fallout is among the people. It's among the young people who watch your show, who follow social media, who don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Like, they're paying attention, and they have almost no power in this country on this issue because of Israel's ethno-supremacist bribery network known as AIPAC, which controls Congress with a hammerlock. Look at like two of the few voices in Congress who spoke out about these issues.
Marjorie
Bush. Sorry?
Cori Bush was kicked out.
And Jamal Bowman.
Kicked out.
Both kicked out. But AIPAC spent almost $20 million. And they were like backbenchers. Like, their own campaigns, they probably spent like $100,000, and they spent $20 million, like Super Bowl style ads against them.
Yeah.
And none of the ads even mentioned Israel once. And they come up with these fake stealth packs like Americans for Democracy in their district. So you don't even know it's an AIPAC ad.
Smart.
And now they're going after Thomas Massey.
And Marjorie. No?
And Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, okay.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's safer in her district, but who is paying for the campaign against Thomas Massey? It's Miriam Adelson and Paul Singer. Paul Singer is another ultra-Zionist billionaire who is basically like Marco Rubio's pimp. He owns Marco Rubio. He's a vulture capitalist who runs Elliott Capital Management. And he's very involved in Venezuela as well. So these guys are running the show.
So let me ask you a question. Trump is elected 2024. Miriam Adelson's a huge donor, among others, right? Bill Ackman's probably is another big donor. Is the understanding, we gave you a bunch of money, you're going to let us do anything we want, and is there kind of a veiled threat that, spoken or unspoken, that hangs in the air around Epstein in your estimation? and the Epstein files and the nature of the relationship between Jeffrey Epstein potentially and Israeli intelligence, what exactly, how does that factor into what we're seeing now with shaping a narrative? It seems like that lobby is losing control of the narrative quickly, certainly with younger people, but with a lot of people. The rise of independent media, the sheer audacity with which that, AIPAC and people like that are behaving, Netanyahu. What role do you think uncovering the truth about Epstein plays in the fear in the White House? Are they afraid to release this stuff? Are they implicated in this stuff? Is it both? And was this something where it was understood that they were there to extend the cover-up? What do you think this is?
Well, Trump has personally said that he's concerned about all of the files and the names of clients being released, or not necessarily clients, but associates, because it will smear some very good people. I mean, he said that on the record, and he thinks he's one of them. He was very closely associated with Jeffrey Epstein. And this was the first time I've ever seen the Teflon Don get his mystique actually broken.
Facts.
It was all over Jeffrey Epstein, but it's not just about Jeffrey Epstein or one man. I think it's dangerous to go too far down the rabbit hole on Jeffrey Epstein, but we do need to acknowledge there was a strong Israeli connection there. Jeffrey Epstein was working with Ehud Barak, former Israeli prime minister, defense minister, most decorated soldier in Israeli history, on spinning out a series of security companies that were going to compete with the big leaguers like Palantir. Barak was at his townhouse over 50 times. He had met with Shimon Peres, former Israeli prime minister. He had met with Ehud Olmert, former prime minister. He'd set up meetings between J.P. Morgan and Benjamin Netanyahu. And he was a pro-Israel guy. He was close to Alan Dershowitz, too, who's like considered sort of Israel's propaganda lawyer. So Jeffrey Epstein's sort of a stand-in for everything that frustrates people, especially younger people in this country, about this two-tiered legal and political system where there is a kind of a class of 0.1 percenters who exist completely above the law, who are like molesting people and carrying out all sorts of sordid financial crimes and bribery and manipulating institutions, buying CBS News and propagandizing the public in support of a genocide. It's sort of like Jeffrey Epstein perfectly embodies the most disgusting specter or figure of this entire network that we have been sort of forbidden from talking about for.
All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. Y'all definitely, I already put the link for that interview. I think I put it again. All right, so I just put the link. Y'all, if y'all want to check out the full interview, definitely go check that out. I saw somebody write in the chat that it already got 1 million views. Somebody wrote, hold that. Imagine getting your news. Cat Girl wrote, imagine getting your news from Fox or Newsmax. All of them. Hold up. Don't tell me you an MSNBC, CNN fan. Don't tell me that. But they all bad. They're all bad. So the link's in the chat. Leo, I want to finish off. All right. So give me about, realistically, 8 more minutes. Give me about 8 more minutes and I'll have you out of here. I got to show y'all something. Yo, this dude. All right. So if y'all are familiar with Rabbi Shmuley, then you'll probably understand why I'm laughing. But Rabbi Shmuley has a message, and obviously I'm not laughing at the message surrounding around, obviously, Charlie Kirk passing away, but I'm laughing at how Shmuley, Rabbi Shmuley, is trying to like act as if he's getting ready to replace Charlie Kirk. Like these self-appointed replacements for Charlie Kirk. It's insane. Like anybody who's looking at Charlie Kirk, looking up to Charlie Kirk as a leader is looking up to Rabbi Shmuley. Like if that's like, I don't know. Y'all take a look at this. Y'all tell me what y'all thoughts are, and we'll go from there.
Americans, even those who disagree with us. if we can feel enriched by difference and actually love our fellow Americans, even those who disagree with us, not the radicals and extremists, not the Candace Owens, and not the Dan No Balzerians, and not the Nick Fuentes, American Nazi, and not the Ilhan Omars, who I think was either celebrating or the murder of Charlie Kirk, and not Rashida Tlaib. I'm not talking about the nutcases and the Nazis. I'm talking about just if you're a conservative and you could just.
First and foremost, I got to address trying to lump everybody in the same category. That's corny. We're not, this is what I feel like they just don't understand. Sometimes I think a Ben Shapiro, a Rabbi Shmuley, a Bibi Netanyahu, they're talking to America as if they're talking to pro-Israel Zionists, as if every America has that vision. I don't know whether that's just their way of communicating, where they say, hey, just act like you're talking to them and people will just start to believe it. But when he tries to say that Candace Owens, Dan Bilzerian, the Nick Fuentes, that they're just Nazis, that nobody's buying that. Those are the people that challenge Israel and have called out certain things in the Jewish community. A lot of those things that they're calling out, a lot of other people have questions about, but are just too scared to ask, are just too scared to have the conversation. We saw how the lady on Newsmax tiptoed around even asking Bibi Netanyahu his involvement with Charlie Kirk. It's ridiculous to me, like setting the table for him. These, like, when they say certain things like this, we have to question it. You're not just going to lump in people as Nazis just because they call out Israel and they disagree with certain things that are being done and look at what's done to the Palestinians and think it's a genocide. You're not going to get away with that. If that's your strategy, you're going to turn off a lot of people, especially when you consider that Charlie Kirk was already pivoting in a direction away from being pro-Israel in these situations, whether it's Iran and Palestine. But maybe I'm wrong.
See the humanity and the spark of God in a progressive who's decent, and vice versa. If you're a progressive who could see the spark of God in a conservative, then we've expanded the American heart, and the hole left by Charlie Kirk's murder, it will never close, but relative to the size of the American heart, it becomes smaller. But if we continue along this line that we just demonize everything, so then that hole is going to consume us. It'll become a black hole, and we'll just all be sucked into its vortex. So I want to tell you, I'm going to commit myself to doing even more debates. I debate constantly. A lot of people are afraid to debate me, and to be honest, they should be. But I'm going to commit myself to doing even more debates. I'm going to try and pick up where Charlie left off. I was a rabbi at Oxford University for 11 years. I've spoken at hundreds of colleges all over the world. I'm now going to try and do these debate sessions because I love what he was doing, that he was inviting people who disagreed with him. They killed him for it, and I'll need security. But if there's anyone out there, if there's a university, et cetera, specifically universities and students and young people that want to invite me, we're not talking about.
Hold on. Hold on 1 second. So you're saying that these people, whoever they are, according to you, they killed him because they disagreed with him. But if people are coming out saying that Charlie Kirk no longer wanted to accept money from Bibi Netanyahu and a lot of pro-Zionist groups, and that he no longer agreed with what Israel was doing, yeah, you kind of get what I'm saying? Like, on one hand, you're saying, oh, so it's enough. So somebody else, it was enough for them just disagreeing with them to eliminate him. But okay, I'm just there. I'm just asking questions.
You know, big sums of money, nothing like that. I need security and I need travel. That's essentially it. And I'm prepared to do it, you know, based on schedule, et cetera. You can write to me at info@shmuley.com, info@shmuley.com. Let me say it again, info@shmuley.com. If you want me to speak at your university and pick up where Charlie left off, debate people who don't agree with me, that means even the Israel haters, as long as they don't try to kill me, as long as they don't try to filibuster and just drown me out and free Palestine and all that kind of crap, as long as you want to talk to me and debate me, I'm going to pick that up. I'm going to direct our office now, God willing, to resume Charlie's campaign on campuses to spread ideas and to spread tolerance, some kind of harmony where we listen to each other even as we radically disagree. Let me warn all of you students who come forward, you know, I kind of know my stuff, thank God, so be ready. But that's okay, because I'm going to respect you as long as you respect me. But if you try to kill me and shoot me and shoot me in the neck, God forbid, or if you drown me out, if you call me a Nazi, no, that's not dialogue, and I'm going to cut you off and I'm going to walk away. But if, again, I want to repeat, anyone that wants me to speak, I'm going to continue Charlie's work, God willing. I'm going back to my campus roots. I come from the world of academia. I was a rabbi at Oxford University for 11 years. I debated hundreds of people. I continue.
Yo, you gotta appreciate the confidence, if nothing else. Like, yo, this is like you got an athlete who's injured. You know, you got a good player on the team injured, and as somebody who know, like, going to the coach and saying, you know, I'm ready to replace him. You know, and it's like, bro, like, you're not that. Like, what? That's not even a good comparison. I shouldn't even give him that comparison. But I told y'all 8 minutes, and it's already been 7. So I got to make this quick. This is the most important part of the show. And after watching Rabbi Shmuley, and I can't stand that he has on that Kennedy shirt, and that's one of the huge red flags that I have, or the only red flag that I ever had with let me not say that. I was very uncomfortable seeing Rabbi Shmuley so close with Kennedy. That's one of the red flags that I did have. And y'all know I was a big Kennedy guy, and still am to a certain degree, but I just feel like him, like Trump, they've completely sold out to Israel. So not a big fan of his, I would say, as of right now. I just think he's being manipulated and controlled. But the most important part of the show is right now, all right? We're going to take 45 seconds to clear our minds, manifest, meditate, get our breath work. Every Sunday and Monday, if y'all don't know, we set out to make this our greatest week ever. All right. We are intentional with it. And we take the 45 seconds. We like to say, with every inhale, you're inhaling positive energy. Every exhale, you're actually feeling the negative energy go by. Take this seriously. All right. It's only 45 seconds. Take this seriously. A lot of us need to meditate. A lot of us aren't still. A lot of us consume a lot of information. And we can use just some time just to have our own conversation with our own thoughts, or just let our brain breathe a little bit and get a little bit of a break. So I'm going to do it with my eyes closed. I'm going to focus on how I can make sure that this is the greatest week ever for me, minds, and humanity, whoever I make an impact on. That's what I'm focusing on. So remember, every inhale, positive, exhale, negative, getting rid of the negative, and we'll start that 45 seconds now. All right, give me an inhale in the positive. Our last exhale, getting rid of all that negative, all the rest of that negative is out of there. Now we just recirculating positive energy. Y'all know the vibes. Y'all know what we come here to do. Elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, raising our standards to become the best leaders we can become that are needed now more than ever. The best leaders we can become that are needed now more than ever, as well as challenging our standards to grow into the people that we need to grow into in order to accomplish these tremendous, audacious, sometimes people will think they're arrogant goals, but that's just because we know that we can dream big, plan big, and have the effort and discipline and sacrifice in order to accomplish those things. Strength and honor, onward and upward. Y'all know what I mean when I say get to the bag. That's focusing on all the little things, all those quote unquote little things. Got to use air quotes because we know that they're actually big. All the things that we're doing throughout the day, throughout the hour, throughout the minute, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year, that are going to accumulate and add up to the impact that we make on this world that we like to call our personal legend. All right. We're focused on our purpose. We're elevating on purpose. We capitalize the purpose because we are intentional with the direction that we're moving in as we strive for purposeful abundance. Now, once again, I said the things that are in my bag, those are the things that I'm focusing on. That's my compass. That's going to make sure that I'm moving in a direction with the proper trajectory in order to get to the ultimate goal. All right. So the things that are in your bag, you got to figure out for you. The things that are in my bag that I focus on: peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and in everything we do, integrity. And y'all know what I've been adding on. Whatever I've been adding on to it, something that we could use. It seems like every week, every time I say it, we could use it more and more, but it's balance. All right, adding on that balance. So what do I got for y'all today? We finishing off with my theme music. Dang, I should have already had it queued up. Hold up. Play me my theme music. Let me make sure that this is the edited one. I hope this is the edited one. I'm gonna blame Maya. Yeah, hold on. And as always, appreciate y'all. Love y'all, man. Really, really, really thank y'all for tapping in. Big bro, well, let's have a great week. Live in the now. Live in the now. That's all we have right now, this moment. And I heard something the other day, and it really hit me. And it was that no matter how much money that you have, no matter the life that you have when you're 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, there's not any of that money that you wouldn't give up to go back to this moment right now. Think about that. When we're 60, 70, 80, 90, no matter what we attain along the way, there's nothing that we wouldn't give up. No amount of money, I say. No amount of money that we wouldn't give up to be in this moment right now. All right. Be the change. It starts with me. That's the energy that we're on. All right. We control the energy we put out, period. All right, so let me play my theme music. I'll see y'all soon. Appreciate y'all as always. You know the vibes. Sean said, thank you, brother. Peace to the Zulu. It's the black guy in the corner. You know what it is? Hey, yo. Yo, people be asking like, where did the black guy in the corner come from? Yo, that's what y'all was calling me. Y'all, you know, it is what it is. Have fun with this stuff. Like, I laugh at myself at times. It's funny. Hold up. We just got a super chat. Ma said we just got it. Yo. I got to check my email. Hopefully, Robert, you emailed me because my mom, we were at dinner yesterday. And my mom was like, are you going to meet up with Robert? You got to talk to Robert. Like my mom was saying that. So, Robert, just know that your contributions, they are very much appreciated. Very much appreciated, not only by just me, but by our entire team, my family. This is a special moment. This is a special moment. Why, Steve? Because it's now. That's why. Because it's now. So this is all we got. How lucky we are to be born when we could have been born at any time or not even born. We're all living at this exact time, this day and age. We're on this live stream. People from all over. Some of us never met each other before. How dope is that? Like, let's capitalize on that. That's got to be for a reason. And if it's not for a reason, let's make it for a reason. Let's make it meaningful. So, great commentary. Keep educating everyone. Big bro, I'm gonna keep pushing, and I appreciate every bit of support that you continue to give along the way. Maya sent some good energy. Kat Gill sent the fire emojis. We doing the Lord's work. Well, we're all doing the Lord's work. As long as if we're consistently pushing ourselves to grow, I think that we're all doing the Lord's work. So on that note, play my theme music.
TB, GI, TC. It's the black guy in the corner. But they'd rather see a nigga on the corner. They say I'm stealing Nick's clips like I'm stealing Nick's chick, not knowing that I hit him first week for the lick. I said, Nick, I could post here while you post there. Let's run the ads up, then let's meet up over there. Let's figure out a split that's honorable and fair. Tell me where you trying to take it. Bro, I'll meet you there. 1600 Penn, Wash, DC. Swear I saw the vision riding through the DMV. I envision prayers, but I could do VP. Hillbilly Elegy, fuck, I look like JD. Shout out my cheat code, Dave and Karen raised me. And my big bro, a nuclear family.
And they don't like that. Strong fathers in the crib, BLM for that. LBJ society created all that. Victim of mentality, I can't embrace that. And everything they taught in school, assume it's all cap. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Everything I said I'd be, I am that. Ain't no introduction, just some fun facts. In case you were wondering, I am that.
Oh, we can't see.
I know you heard me hit it 3 times. Dr. Umar. Shout out to Umar, man. We ain't kicking nobody when they down. And shout out to everybody that continues to show love, support, appreciate the message that I'm giving y'all along with the bro Nick's message.
Hold on. I gotta turn the music down for that, man. Shout out to my cheat code, my parents, my big brother, Just, Fran, Maya, my support system, my rock. Huh? What else? What? See, she talking mess over there. I take it back. Shout out to everybody. I'll see y'all soon, man. Appreciate y'all. Unc, shout out to Unc in the building. Unc, you got a jersey on the way to you. All right, I'll see y'all, man. Ew.